Hey guys, how's it all going today? Mindful Baker here. Now, today's video is going to be on a little subject that literally revolutionised my life back in the day, where I was at a point of succeed or fail kind of thing, as in live or die kind of thing. It had such a massive impact on me. Now, if I hadn't chosen to take heed of the issues that I'm about to impart on you, who knows where I'd be now. And I'm serious about this. You know, I wouldn't have been able to be the man that I am now were it not for what I did following the accident which I had 13 years ago, which obviously I will tell you about a little bit later on. But first of all, what I'm going to be talking about today is acceptance. Now, I'm not talking about physical acceptance of a gift here. You know, that's easy and it's just take it or leave it sort of situation. I'm talking about choices we make when our minds are faced with sort of situations that can't just be swept under the carpet or just allowed to just be forgotten about. So these problems are ever present and need to be dealt with head on. But I mean, a large proportion of people, they choose to just deal with these issues in other ways, often taking to physical or maybe chemical distractions to subvert their attention away from the issues at hand. Say, for example, you're suffering from a level of anxiety that is preventing you from just conducting your life in day-to-day activities like you used to. You know, you're not as free as you used to be. And you try your hardest to keep to yourself, because obviously with this anxiety you don't want to be around other people, so you just make sure that you try not to see as many people as possible. But if it comes to situations where you do have to see people, you know, there's whatever it's to do with work or social, you know, you've been asked to go to a family occasion, you find that drinking a few glasses of wine actually has it sort of gets rid of a lot of the anxiety, and just you use that to help you just deal with the issues at hand. So although you seem to think that the drinking helps with it, you're actually avoiding the problem, and although it seems to be remedying the problem in the short term, is actually constantly exacerbating it from the root, which would be making it just grow stronger and stronger, and it will actually gain this sort of vicious hold on you. So in this situation, instead of accepting the pain that has been bestowed upon you, you're in actual fact fighting it. And you are fighting a force that has so much power over you that it will never let you win. Okay? You cannot win. It has such a phenomenal grip on you. You're actually feeding it by putting up a fight. At this point, by coupling up the pain you're experiencing from the anxiety alongside the resistance of trying to fight it by attempting to drink the pain away, you will actually have created a level of suffering to add into the mix. So, pain plus the resistance equals suffering. So, it's not looking good at the moment. You still feel the pain even when you're fighting it. And the more you fight it, the more intense the pain gets. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a vicious cycle of pain and suffering. Resisting the pain, therefore, compounds your difficulties. So the only way to remedy this is by acceptance, which teaches you to just let go of the resistance and therefore ease the suffering. Now, as a lot of people do, if you find acceptance too hard of a concept to bring to the pain you're experiencing, you could always just try acknowledging it instead, because the two sort of work together, so whichever is easiest for you. And by acknowledging a pain, so observing and allowing it to just be, akin to accepting, the experience then changes. So this is even evident with true physical pain. So mindful research actually has found that by accepting it, acknowledging it, and just allowing it to be, it actually reduces the pain. It is very important to note, though, that acknowledging and accepting a pain should not be carried out with the sole intention of trying to eliminate it, because that isn't true acceptance. You need to observe these feelings, sensations or thoughts without trying to change them, and just allow whatever results from this mindful approach just to develop. The smallest steps you take towards reaching acceptance can set a whole chain of events in motion, leading to transformation. So the smallest steps can lead to the biggest results. Now, having said all that, let me, as I mentioned earlier, let me tell you about my experience and how acceptance literally revolutionised my life. So, following on from this horrific accident that I endured over 13 years ago now, I mean, alongside the plethora of other injuries that I sustained, a seemingly innocuous at the time brain injury started to reveal its ugly head that I had, obviously, only after I'd been discharged from the hospital, when I started to see new people. Now, my earliest memory, my vivid memory of this condition occurred when some friends came to visit me at my parents' house. I remember they came where I was in bed. I wasn't really doing a lot, but I was able to chat and socialise a little. Anyway, I obviously wasn't in a great mood for chatting, so I suggested to them, let's just put on TV and watch a bit of entertainment. And the television show that was on at the time was Friends. And Friends was, kind of still is, my favourite show. It certainly was before the accident, my favourite show. So I was very happy to get back into something I hadn't been doing for ages. Now, so I'd say a few minutes into watching Friends, I turned to my friend and I just said to her, why are they playing a spoof version of it? And she sort of looked at me a little bit strange. She's like, it's not a spoof version. What do you mean, why are they playing a spoof version? I was like, well, it's exactly the same voices, but all of their faces have changed. And she just looked at me and she went, Tim, this isn't a spoof version. And I was like, no, it must be, you're joking, it is, it has to be. And she was like, no, Tim, seriously, it's not. And it was that moment then that I just suddenly realised that something really bad had gone in my head and I didn't recognise these faces which I'd seen every single day, and I was just like, what the hell has just happened? So I was so upset at this point. I didn't, because when I said it first became evident when I left hospital. Obviously I saw a lot of different nurses, but I just figured that all nurses looked the same. So it hadn't really dawned on me that I wasn't recognising all these different nurses. So once this had happened, and it sort of slowly started to reveal itself more when I would go out and meet friends, and my mother would say, oh, you met them the other day. I'd be like, no, I don't recognise them. And it was just starting to become a massive issue for me. And I hated it. And I actually Googled it, had a sort of Google search to see what it was all about. And it turned out I suffered from something called prosopagnosia, which is facial blindness. So I was able to see people and obviously interact with them, but the next time I saw them, I wouldn't recognise their face. I'd remember the situation, but I wouldn't recognise their face. And it was reading and learning all about this, and I was just like, this is really, really crap. What am I going to do? Obviously, it was so scary, and I carried on just like this for a couple of years, just trying to distract myself away from the problem and just trying to find excuses for it. So, some of my excuses, maybe I was too tired to really make the effort to remember their face, or maybe they weren't really important enough for me to care about them because I probably wasn't going to meet them again. Or I just tried to write it within me, as in write, I'd say things like, well, this probably always happened, but I just didn't remember it because it was just one of those things. I just tried not to make a big deal of it, and just tried not to make the fact that I hit my head really hard the excuse, Or I would always get friends to somehow agree with me that these people's faces were pretty sort of the same as everyone else's faces anyway, so they would also not recognise them either. I'd get people to say, well, I wouldn't recognise them, and obviously they would just say it just to try to make me feel better, but I know that they obviously would be able to recognise them. And I was just coming up with all of these different excuses and just trying to find all these different reasons for why I was doing this and not actually look at the deep. And so it went on like this for quite a few years. I'd say probably about 3 years. And of obviously my recovery until I eventually stopped trying to make plausible excuses for what was happening. And instead, I sort of just observed the situations that I was in. And before acknowledging everything that came with it, I just decided that it was part of me and I just accepted it. And that this was something that I had suffered and that it was potentially going to be irreparable, but it was something that I had to deal with within myself. You know, I could no longer fight it like I had been, just making excuses and just trying to just laugh it off. You know, this was something which I was experiencing and I needed to just accept it, which I did. And it was at that moment of acceptance that the whole situation took on a completely different viewpoint for me. Like, I no longer tried to make excuses to myself for what was happening, because I wasn't trying to excuse it to anyone else. I was always trying to excuse it within myself, which in turn saw me looking at new faces which I might not remember in just completely different ways. So yeah, this prosopagnosia, the facial blindness, it still happened, but I learned to pick up people's faces in different ways, and I sort of different features that would remind me of more of what they said. So instead of faces, potentially obviously voices, or what colour was their hair, did it have funny eyes, did it have like a weird monobrow, did it have fat cheeks, were their eyes close together, you know, just completely different thing, you know, whether did it have one ear different to the other one, just all these different things which never before did I have to do that, and most of you would never have to do that, but this is something I had to do. Having accepted the problem, I then had to find ways of dealing with it within myself, because I wasn't doing it. If I hadn't accepted it, there was no way I was going to be doing that. So these little things which I started to do started to help me along the process of how I was going to develop from having accepted this situation. And interestingly, from sort of that point on, the problem almost became my little sidekick, so to speak, as in I began to use it to my advantage. So no longer was I fighting it and creating extra suffering as a result of fighting it. I was working alongside it and using it to my advantage. So we were actually working together and I was no longer suffering, which was such an amazing thing for me. And now, I think 10 years on from the day I finally accepted it, it has almost, I mean, it hasn't completely gone, but it has almost gone. I would say 95% of the time I recognise people's faces. So there's a sort of small sort of 5%, but I don't. But I accept it as part of me, and I just allow it to be. And if it wasn't for that, I would not be in such a sort of happy place that I am now. I'm really happy with myself. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy. I accepted that I had this issue, and yeah, it's just something. It's part of me now. And so whatever life throws at me now, I know that it's all about acceptance. So please, guys, I really hope that I've sort of helped show a little bit of what acceptance can help you with how it helped me. And please, if you get a chance, please just click the like button, share this video, and just subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and just get as many people to subscribe as possible, because I want to help as many people as possible with all of these different things. I will be doing different videos all the time. Obviously, I'll be doing baking videos, I'll be doing more videos on lots of different issues related to your mind, and obviously doing mindful motivation type stuff, and obviously stuff which will help you on your everyday life. So guys, thanks very much, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.